Expanding the definition of gender to accommodate absolutely everybody when it comes to bathrooms means there's no such thing as gender at all. Next on Campus Roundup. Hello, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Campus Roundup at the College Fix. Our top story segment focuses on public universities now allowing men and women to use opposite restrooms with no questions asked. What could go wrong? To talk more about this, we welcome Arissa Damron, a student at Yale University and a journalist at the College Fix. Arissa, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So is it my imagination, or do universities seem like they're just totally creeped out by any perceived difference between gender at all? They want to seem to obliterate it. What's going on at Wright State University in Detroit?
Absolutely. At Wright State, they're really trying to repurpose regular restrooms into all gender restrooms. Their goal is to have one in every building. However, the language they're using for this implies that you don't really need to have a reason to use them, whether you're transgender or not. If you have a deemed use or a deemed need to use those restrooms, it's free game.
Right. It seems as if this is one step beyond what many other colleges and universities have done. The implication here is we've just given up trying to decide if you want to use this bathroom, whoever you are, for whatever reason, at whatever point of the time or the day, you can do it and no questions asked.
Right. They're really just getting rid of the reasons why and saying, go at it. Here's an all-gender restroom, including not just single-stall all-gender restrooms, but multi-stalled ones.
And locker rooms this applies to well, correct?
Yes, and dorms.
Yeah,
they have an all-gender option.
Yeah, see, that really is a new frontier, isn't it? It's one thing to go into a bathroom that's stalled off, right? And then there's still some modicum of privacy. We're talking about shower rooms, locker rooms now. I read your article. It was very well written, and I know the answer to this question, but got to ask it sarcastically. You reached out to the school to get some answers, and you were greeted with?
Absolutely no response.
What do you make of? I mean, you've seen these stories across the country as well. I really feel sympathetic for you journalists. You guys do a fantastic job getting this stuff put together. And story after story after story, the universities will not talk to you. My sense is that they don't want to talk to you because they don't want to have to explain the fact that they are pretty much just trying to phase gender out altogether.
Right. They really just want to say, here's our policy, understand it how you will. They're really giving into a lot of campus groups that are petitioning them to make these changes and then hoping they never have to answer for their choices.
In your mind, have you been able to locate any opposition to these campus groups? We know who they are. They're the same very small minority of kids on college campuses who are making all of these changes, seemingly without any opposition. Have you been able to find any opposition to this policy on campus?
At Wright State University, not yet, but a lot of universities putting forth policies like these do receive a lot of pushback from sexual assault survivors and other more feminist groups that say they pride themselves on having these female-only spaces and don't want to have to experience men in their bathrooms who just decide they need to use the women's restroom that day. It's not the transgender people they're worried about, it's the men who exploit these policies.
Sure. And one of the more interesting aspects of your story was Wright State University is really pretty much crying poor mouth. They're going through all sorts of cutbacks. They are really struggling financially. And yet, nevertheless, they found a reason to spend money on this because...
Right. They're losing money. They have a very dismal four-year graduation rate of almost only 6 to 9%, I believe. And yet they're spending the money instead of on getting people to graduate in a timely manner on switching bathroom signs.
I was surprised in your article that some of these very limited student groups who have pushed this through, in spite of the lack of funds, one of their arguments was that in the future, students will be more likely to attend Wright State University if we have these kinds of bathrooms all over campus, and faculty will be more willing to teach here. What possible argument could you make that would be true? What is the thinking behind that kind of a statement?
Right. These are hypothetical situations. They're like, imagine one day a future where all the transgender students in the United States flock to Wright State University because of our openness. I don't think they've had any proof for that argument. I don't think they will.
I think that's a really good point. And as somebody who has covered these kinds of stories, all across the country, it seems to me that a lot of what we're seeing here in the remaking of the modern university is predicated precisely on that. It's all fairy tale. There's no evidence. There's no research being done. There are no long-term studies being put forth about what all this is going to mean in the long term. Why do you think there's such a rush on college campuses to make these kind of radical changes so quickly?
It's a lot of virtue signaling on college campuses these days. Look at us, we're doing this for transgender students, even if we don't have transgender students asking for this. Look at this, we're supporting this movement and that movement. Just because a small group does it, and a small group propositioning very rogue movements gets a lot of coverage in the news, and they know that they have to cave to that or they're going to look like bad people, supposedly.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you've got a very small vocal minority who's getting a lot of press, and you don't dare cross them, these kids. And meanwhile, the other kids on campus just have to go along with this. Last question I want to ask you, as somebody who is a journalist and knows what it's like to have to try to put a story together, what does it mean to the future of journalism when these kind of radical changes are occurring on public campuses, places where we should have absolute access as taxpayers to what's taking place on those institutions, that it's happening so quickly and that there is so little accountability? They don't have to talk to you when you're trying to get a story together.
Right. It's very dangerous for universities in general and public universities to really shy away from media coverage and to not comment on media commentary, because they're public universities. They're getting our money, and we deserve to talk to them about what's going on. They would not talk to their own students, so the press should be treated no differently.
Well, you know, it is a really sad commentary. They are public universities. They are doing a disservice not only to their students, not only to the ethos of the campus by not being more transparent about this. They are participating in thwarting journalism. I wonder what the journalism department at Wright State University would have to say about that. Arissa, it's always a great pleasure to speak with you. Keep up the great reporting, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now I want to shift to Talking Campus, our weekly discussion with members of the College Fix editorial team. Today, I'm joined by College Fix assistant editor Daniel Payne to continue this conversation. Daniel, this idea now of gender expression, we've gone from male and female bathrooms to gender-neutral bathrooms to bathrooms that are open to people who express the opposite gender, and now gender expression specifically. What do you think that means?
Yeah, so really what that has come to mean is it's really such a broader category than anything else we've really seen in this whole debate. And what it means is that, if you dress a certain way, if you wear your hair a certain way, if you, put on lipstick or eyeliner, you can basically kind of approximate yourself to be one sex or the other. So when these, universities are saying that bathrooms are open up to people based on gender expression, what they're essentially saying is that, for example, if a man dresses up as a woman, wears a dress, puts on some makeup, then he is welcome to use the women's restroom, even if he doesn't actually, quote unquote, identify as a woman. So it's actually almost taken the whole gender identity craze to a whole new level.
Yeah, when you think about gender expression, what if I'm a man who expresses a masculine gender and still wants to use a woman's bathroom? I mean, on what ground can a university say no now? I just don't see any way that a university can deny me that access without opening themselves to all sorts of complaints, possibly lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, and that really seems to have been the way that it's going, is that, student groups and administrators really started kind of small and started with this really, odd esoteric argument that a lot of people didn't get, but a lot of people still didn't really want to challenge it because it's, it's kind of awkward to fight against these things sometimes. And now we really have moved up to the point where, yes, it really doesn't matter, I think, at this point, even if you're dressed fully as an average male, if you want to use the woman's restroom, I don't know if there's many campus administrators across the country that are actually going to challenge that. I think at this point they're just throwing up their hands and saying, however tacitly, that every bathroom is a gender-neutral bathroom.
Yeah, but that does beg another question. If I happen to be a woman in a bathroom, a woman's bathroom, and a man who in no way, shape, or form identifies as or expresses openly in a way that I can see that he is a woman, do I then have a legitimate complaint? If a male, a man walks into a woman's bathroom with no pretense whatsoever to any topical display of femininity, does that make me now an aggressor? Does the woman have a right to actually argue that her privacy has been impinged upon?
Yeah, well, at the College Fix, we've actually covered incidents at campuses where administrators have said, women, you cannot complain if a man comes into your bathroom. Just put up with it. And, you can get the idea that this phenomenon is much broader than it is. It's really kind of motivated by a really small contingency of really dedicated activists. I don't think there are many women on campus or off of it who want to share their bathrooms with men. Understandably so. But I think for the most part, people have kind of been, women have been kind of cowed into silence, because I think under any other circumstances, they would say, no, we do not want a man to come in where women and girls are, this is a very private space historically. For the most part, it seems like a lot of people have just clammed up and are sort of going along with it for fear of reprisal.
Yeah, and feminism, campus feminism, which has grown increasingly radical over the last couple of decades, more and more insistent feminism on the radical uniqueness of the woman, how anti and unincorporatable with men it is, the idea that women, in order to have safe spaces, need to have places away from men. And yet, with these bathroom rules now, feminists not only seem silent on the issue, but in many instances, they seem to be advocating for this. How does that serve a feminist demographic?
Yeah, well, it's kind of just sort of reflects the whole circular nature of feminism and particularly liberal progressive feminism that even just a few short years ago there was this big push for safe spaces for women, and you can still see plenty of that today where there was this attempt to carve out dedicated spaces where men couldn't come in and women could be feminists together or just have a space that was just dominated by them. And now at this point, we've come to the point where that's even too aggressive for campus feminists, that the safe space now has to include men. So it's sort of an instance of kind of the revolution eating its own. I think that a lot of activists went so far left that they just kind of came around and started destroying the things they were working for. So it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, and we keep saying there's nothing wrong with being male or female. A major American psychological group just came out this week and argued that typical, traditional, natural masculinity is dangerous, toxic, and unhealthy. So maybe the colleges are just getting a jump on eradicating that altogether. Daniel Payne, it has certainly been a great pleasure to speak with you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Well, one of the trends on college campuses I've been trying to alert people to quite a bit lately is this move from diversity to inclusivity. Diversity means we bring lots of different types of people to college campuses. Hard to argue with that unless it becomes manic and the kind of obsession it's become. But however, diversity is now being replaced by inclusivity. And inclusivity is a much more dangerous term. It actually is the death of diversity. If everybody has to be treated exactly the same, if inclusion means everybody must be able to do everything else on a college campus, by definition, you're going to have to get rid of diverse things. Inclusion is the death of diversity. And by creating bathrooms now that are so diverse that they are utterly inclusive, you don't really have gendered bathrooms at all. You just have places where people go to the bathroom. And you have made a big step forward to eliminating and stigmatizing actual gender, actual male and female. But that's probably part of the design for progressives on college campuses. And that's the final fix. Be sure to stay up on all the latest news and information from the College Fix by joining us on all of our social media platforms. For the Campus Roundup, I'm Dr. Duke, and we'll see you next time.